It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart. It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart. And we all have genius inside of us. I always say that life is like an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if an egg is broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things begin on the inside. And if you're watching this, you've self selected. You have greatness inside of you, you have genius inside of you. And when is now the perfect time to let it out? For the next 45 minutes, I want to give you a complete brain upgrade. You think about the technology that we upgrade. You probably get signed up for the latest phone and you upgrade your apps, your computer, maybe get a new, microwave or television, whatever. But when's the last time we took time to upgrade the most important technology, which is the human mind? And I believe your brain is your number one wealth building asset. And the faster you can learn, the faster you can earn. Today, knowledge is not only power, but knowledge is profit. So I'm going to be sharing information today to help you level up your learning so you can level up your life. I encourage you to take some notes. And my goal really is to make this session so valuable that you feel like this session alone was worth it for you to sign up. And by the way, when I say this session, I want this to be so valuable to you. It's not because I'm so great, it's because you really are. You are so great. You are, in fact, limitless. And this session is really about transcending, ending the trance, transcend, end the trance, this mass hypnosis through marketing and media that somehow we're broken. Or maybe it's self-hypnosis. We're saying it to ourselves. When I go to events, like I can do it by Hay House, and if there's time, I'll do a demonstration. We'll pass around a microphone and 50 or 100 people will introduce themselves and I'll memorize everyone's name, or they'll give me a list of 100 words or numbers and I'll recall it forwards and backwards. But I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's really possible, because the truth is you can do this too and so much more. Regardless of your age, your background, your career, your education level, your financial situation, your gender, your history, your IQ, you could do this. I've been doing this now, teaching as a brain coach for 32 years. Goodness, I'm in my 50s. Yeah, time really flies. But my mission is to build better, brighter brains. Many of you know, if you've read Limitless, I grew up with a traumatic brain injury when I was 5, had a very bad fall. And because of it, I was had learning disabilities, had poor focus, poor memory. I would have migraines every single day at the age of 5, and I just thought it was normal. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read, and that was hard. Very low self-esteem, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, you name it. When I was 9 years old, I was slowing down in class and I was being teased a lot for it that particular day in class. And I remember a teacher came to my defense. She pointed to me in front of the whole classroom and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." And how many, looking at the chat here, how many of you have children? How many of you once were a child? Right? Adults have to be very careful with their external words because they often become a child's internal words. So it definitely happened with me every single time I did badly in school, which was daily. I would always say, "Oh, because I have the broken brain." When I wasn't picked for sports because of my head injury, I would have these sensory processing issues, these balance issues. I would say, "Oh, because I have the broken brain." And so that was a form of self-hypnosis. And at events, like I can do it. I saw some of you there recently in Arizona. Someone came to me and said, "Jim, I'm so glad you're here as a brain focus coach. I have a horrible memory, or I'm just getting too old." And I always say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours, right? Your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, "I'm not good at," you name it, remembering people's names, you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. Does that make sense? Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. So I'm going to encourage you to take notes, because just like there's a learning curve, there's also a forgetting curve. How many of you prefer handwriting notes versus digital note taking? You can put in the comments, digital note taking or handwriting notes. Which do you prefer? Okay, handwriting is the majority. So actually, when university studies test students for comprehension and remembrance, retention, recall, handwriting notes actually performs better. So I'm going to encourage you to handwrite notes. Here's a whole brain note taking way of capturing information. Put a line right down the page. And on the left side, I want you to capture. On the right side, I want you to create. Simple, simple tip, but this can make a big difference. On the left side, you're taking notes. On the right side, you're making notes. It's a very, very subtle difference. So on the left side, how to read faster. This is how Jim remembers names. This is referring back to what Dr. Mindy said. These are favorite brain foods. These are some of the great nootropics to help you to have momentum in your life. This is how to use AI to enhance your HI, your human intelligence. That would go on the left side. But on the right side, what you're going to do is you're going to write your impressions of what you're capturing. So think about it. How many of you have trouble with mind wandering and get easily distracted because your brain is looking for entertainment elsewhere, right? And I'd rather, instead of it going outside, I'd rather go to the right side of the page. And what are you writing there? Yeah, well, it's kind of like left brain, right brain. Very oversimplification, left brain logic, language, words. So you're capturing, what I'm sharing, and hopefully the rest of the day and maybe the rest of your life. But on the right side, you're writing your impressions. So the right brain's more imagination, emotion, creativity. So get creative on the right side, meaning how am I going to use this? What questions do I have for Jim? I could send him on social media. When am I going to use this? I think the number one productivity tool you have is to reinvent, yourself, is your calendar. And if you don't schedule, it's not going to happen. And the truth is, knowledge by itself is not power. It has the potential to be power. It becomes very powerful when you utilize it, when you apply it. So 3 questions I want you to ask, and you can write these down on your notes to turn knowledge into power. My 3 favorite questions in this category. How can I use this? Why must I use this? When will I use this? How can I use this? Why must I use this? When will I use this? So this is how you take information, because I think that for every hour you spend learning something, a good rule of thumb is to spend an equal hour applying and implementing what you just learned, right? Somebody that goes, and how many of you in the comments in the chat have books on your shelf you haven't read yet? And it becomes shelf help, not self-help, right? How many of you came here like to have a better brain? Because I believe if you want to reinvent yourself, which is the theme of this event, you change your brain, you change your life. You change your brain, you change the entire world. And so, how many of you want a better brain? How many of you came here today like to have a better memory? How many of you forgot why you came here today? Have you ever done that? Have you ever walked into a room of your own home and just forgot why you're there? You ever go to the store to buy one thing and you come back with a grocery bag or 2 grocery bags full of things, except for that one thing that you went to the store for? Have you ever forgot something you just read? You get to the end of the page and just forgot, and you reread it and you still forgot, right? Or you forgot where you placed the keys, or if not your keys, something larger like your car. You see the people out in the mall parking lots with their car alarm using it as GPS, trying to figure out where they parked that day. I believe 2 of the most costly words in our life are "I forgot." I mean, think about the consequences. I forgot to do it. I forgot to go to that meeting, that appointment. I forgot what I just read. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot that conversation. I forgot that person's name. Every single time we hear these thoughts of ourselves, then we lose credibility. We could hurt a relationship, lose a sale, and so on. But when you can easily remember client information, product information, languages, give speeches from memory without notes, remember people's names and faces, which I think is the number one business etiquette skill. Because how are you going to show someone you're going to care for their future, their happiness, their family, their finances, their wellness, whatever you have to offer them and serve them with and support them with, if you don't even care enough just to remember their name, right? And so me growing up with my traumatic brain injury, I struggled to the age of 18, where eventually I found a mentor that showed me really a glimpse of the power of my mind. And I wrote Limitless to be, and how many of you have this book or listened to our podcast or seen videos of me on YouTube? I wrote this to be an owner's manual for your brain because think about it. Every technology comes with some kind of instructions on how to utilize it, but your brain doesn't, and it's not user friendly. And so we're going to talk about that today. All right. So the first thing, taking notes, very important. And you could write on there on the left side, again, capture, on the right side, you create. Note taking on the left, note making on the right. And that's really the key. Now, some of you are familiar with this. This is the basis of transformation in my estimation. I'm just gonna share this um, on the screen, and I call it the limitless model. And I'm gonna just put it there just for a minute, and I'm gonna go through the three keys to building a limitless life, to reinventing yourself. Okay. Because every day we're sprinting to catch up, right? New technology, new people, new ideas, fast changes, endless updates. It's happening in our business and our industry, and it's definitely happening in our personal life. So maybe you feel overwhelmed by the data clutter that we mentioned, information deluge or information or digital distraction. There's another term called digital dementia, where we're outsourcing our brains to our smart devices and our brains aren't getting the exercise it needs and requires. But these three circles, so let's go through this. There's a quote in Limitless from a French philosopher, and I would encourage you to write it down. It says, life is the letter C between the letters B and D. Life is C between B and D. Now let's decode that. What does it mean? B stands for birth, D stands for death, life C, choice. Choice. I believe that these difficult times, they could distract you. These difficult times, they could diminish you. Or these difficult times, you know what? They could develop you. We decide. And you control the controllables. And there's three things you could always control, which are represented by these three circles. Now, I want you to, if we're talking about reinventing yourself, I believe that there is a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced. That there's a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced. Now, how does this relate to your decisions? Well, there are three primary decisions you can make. So let's say you're on the process of reinventing yourself. I want, so Limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless is about advancing. It's about progressing beyond what you're currently demonstrating or what you currently believe is possible. So the opposite of being limitless is what? Being limited, right? Being stuck. So I want you to draw a box on a piece of paper. In what area, just a little box, in what area do you feel like you are not making progress, where you're not advancing? Because I'm going to give you a framework. A framework is a lens to look at things. And this is what I use when I'm coaching or when I'm working and training my team. It's a lens I look at to see where people get stuck, if it makes sense. So you drew a box. In what area do you feel like you're not making progress? You're not advancing? Is it your happiness? Is it your health? Is it your income? Is it your contribution? Is it your reading speed or your memory? Where do you feel like you're not getting better? Where do you feel like you're in this box? Now, this box, by its very nature, is three-dimensional. Now, so that means there's three dimensions that contain the box. And they're also the same three forces that will liberate you, give you freedom outside that box to be able to make more income or to read faster, improve your memory, to be able to have more happiness, right? So three forces, and I represent them by these three circles. So it's a Venn diagram, kind of like Mickey Mouse, two ears and a face, right? What I was showing on the screen earlier. Now, these are the focus points that you'll find that everything falls into these three circles. And when you understand this, you have a blueprint for reinventing yourself, for personal transformation, for transcending. All right, so let's go through this. There are three, I tend to alliterate a lot, so I'm going to make them three M's. All right, so all three circles are M's. And if you've heard me talk about this or if you've read Limitless, I want you to hear this in a new way. Like, when is now an amazing opportunity and time for you to make these changes and put it into action? So the last M here on the bottom are methods. And everybody wants to know what the method is to read faster, to learn languages, to stave off senior moments. You know, I mean, my grandmother passed of Alzheimer's when I was 7 years old. We donated, by the way, all the proceeds to Limitless to charity. So I want to thank everybody who purchased this book. Um, I believe you learn to earn to return. And so we fully funded schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men. Yet most of the research is still done on male brains and treatments on male brains. So in memory of my grandmother, you know, it's something we're very passionate about. So I want to thank you for supporting Limitless, the Kindle, the hard copy, the audiobook also as well. So everyone wants to know with methods, and originally Limitless was all about methodology. But before I sent it to Hay House, I asked myself this simple question. I said, and I often find questions are the answer. I would write that down. Questions are the answer. I asked myself, will everybody who reads this book get the results they're hoping for? And my honest answer was no, because a lot of people know what to do, but they don't always do what they know, because common sense is not often common practice. So I added two M's, the ears of Mickey Mouse, if you will, first that have to be addressed. And the first one is your mindset. Now, your mindset, I'm going to define, you've heard this word often. I'm going to define it as very functionally is a set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something. Okay, mindset is a set of attitudes and assumptions you have about something. So let's say it's money, right? Let's say your goal, you feel stuck in this box, you're not making enough income. Check your mindset first, because what are your assumptions and attitudes about money? I mean, it could be deep rooted, like when I was 5 years old, it was imprinted that I was broken. I mean, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, or money is the root of all evil, or in order to make money, you have to hurt people. That mindset will keep you stuck in this box. Does that make sense? Because once you understand what's holding you back, then you could handle that bottleneck, you know, that area that's so with self-hypnosis, with EMDR, with our friends, the Ortners, tapping, right? You could address it through the proper tools and techniques. So we already talked about mindset a little bit when I talked about people coming to me at events saying, I'm too old, I have a horrible memory, and your brain is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? And so even just catching yourself with mindset, if you find yourself saying, I don't have a great memory, just add a little word like yet at the end. I don't have a great memory yet. And it opens up the possibility and the potential. All right. So three things that would fall under mindset that I want you to capture. Number one, I want you to write more notes than so much in this session. Number one, what I believe is possible. Number two, what I believe I'm capable of. You could believe it's possible for somebody else to do that business, write that book, right? Do that public speaking, get 10,000 followers, whatever, right? But do you believe you're capable? So what I believe is possible. Second, what I believe I'm capable of. Number three, well, let's get really raw here. What I believe I deserve, right? You have this internal thermostat where if you don't believe you deserve to be happy or healthy or wealthy, you can still be stuck in that box. Does that make sense? This box here, that's mindset. The second M, or the final M, the last M, we talk about our methods, and we'll talk about some of those methods. The second M is very important. That stands for what? If you read the book, put it in the chat. Motivation. What is your motive for taking action? And so if you self-sabotage, that's usually a mindset issue. If you procrastinate, that's usually a motivation issue. Because you can have a limitless mindset, believe it's all possible, and have the latest tools and techniques, methods, and still be stuck in that box because you're not motivated to get out of that box, right? So let me share with you the three keys for limitless motivation, where you don't have to use willpower. Three keys for limitless motivation. And this applies to you and it applies to people you relate to. How to motivate somebody to buy your product or service, how to motivate your team, how to motivate your kids to study or to clean their room. There's a formula for limitless motivation that I've discovered over the past 3 decades as a brain coach. And it's the letter P times E times S3. Somebody could put that in the chat. P times E times S3. So let's break this down. By the way, how valuable would it be to have limitless motivation, right? That would be a game changer. So let's say you want to be motivated to do something. Let's take a simple example. Exercise. So exercise is so important for your brain health. As you exercise, you create dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, which is this neurochemical soup for cognitive health and performance. When you exercise, you create something called brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF. What is it? It's like fertilizer for neuroplasticity, right? Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to make new connections, which is the key to learning, right? You can make new connections for new thoughts, new beliefs, new skills, new knowledge, new abilities. And that's really the key. We've discovered more about the human brain more in the past 20 years than the previous 2,000 years combined. What we found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities, our own potential. And neuroplasticity is a big part of that. So neuroplasticity means you can make new connections. That means you could grow older, but in a lot of ways you could grow wiser and smarter. So the P, let's say it's exercise. You want to motivate yourself to exercise and go to the gym and do the Pilates or the CrossFit or the yoga or whatever. And let's say you aren't motivated consistently, because the evidence that you're motivated is you consistently act, right? Because little by little, a little becomes a lot. And we'll talk about that. The piece in the equation stands for purpose. And I don't mean your life's purpose. It could be that. For me, just as a tangent, passion is what lights you up. And you can have a lot of passions, right? Purpose is how you use your passion to light other people up. Let me say that again. So passion is something that lights you up, and it can be many things. Purpose is taking that passion to light other people up. An example is learning is my passion. It wasn't always, because I had these learning disabilities for 13 years. Learning is my passion. It lights me up. Teaching people how to learn is my purpose because it lights other people up. Does that make sense? But going back to P times E times S3 for limitless motivation, the P stands for purpose, which means you need a reason. Like, how many of you in the chat have trouble honestly remembering people's names? You have trouble remembering people's names? Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And remembering names is probably the number one business etiquette skill that there is, networking skill that there is. So you don't remember all names, but as a coach, I have to call you on your BS, your belief systems, right? You don't remember all names, but you don't forget all names. And some names you do remember. And I would imagine you're motivated to remember those names. You're attracted to that person. That person could be good for your business or something else. Please write this down when it comes to purpose. Reasons reap results. Reasons reap results. If you don't, like, even something to remember names, something simple anybody could do is ask yourself, you're at an event, you're at a wedding, you're at a conference, just ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Maybe it's to show the person respect. Maybe it's to get a referral. Maybe it's to do some business. Maybe at the very least is to practice these things I learned from Jim in Reinvent You, right? Without a reason, you won't get the result or the ultimate reward. All right. So just ask, things have to go from your head to your heart to your hands. That's the sequence: mindset, motivation, methods. It has to go from your head. You could visualize things in your head all day long, but if you don't act with your hands, you're not going to get the result. And if you're not acting with your hands, there's a disconnect between your head and your hands. Check in with your heart, right? The symbol of emotion, right? Think about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. We are this chemical feeling soup, and we don't do things logically. We do it emotionally because we are not logical. We are biological, though. And I talked about those neurotransmitters, those molecules of emotion. If you don't tap into those emotion, the energy of motion, we won't take motion, right, with our hands. So ask yourself, working out, do you have a purpose? Like, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I saw someone on the street that I kind of recognize. Have you ever, and this is really challenging for a memory expert, a lot of pressure, right? I saw this person and I like recognized the person, but I didn't know who he was. And once he said hello to me, I heard his voice. I knew exactly who he was, but he looked completely different. He looked younger and more fit, and he had this glow. And just as a backstory, for years, this gentleman was extremely unhealthy. He even took pride in being unhealthy, in his vices and smoking and his junk food and his drinking. And I was like, I need to know. I believe genius leaves clues, right? Genius leaves clues. When somebody's exceptional, there's a method behind what looks like magic to the rest of the world. And I was like, what are you doing? And he starts telling me everything he does. And I'm like, wow, we've been telling you, you're our collective mutual friends have been telling you this for years, and you never did that. He was like, yeah, but recently I came home from a business trip, and my daughter, when I came home, was crying and hysterical. And he found out that she had a nightmare that he had died, that her father had passed away. And that automatically he felt purpose, not intellectually. You know, you should prioritize sleep, meditate, journal, right? Have good social connections, eat the best brain foods ever, read every single day. But if you're not doing it, are you feeling it? So the P in the equation is purpose. You have to allow yourself to feel, not just know intellectually. But somebody could have limitless purpose, let's say to exercise or to read or to make those sales calls, whatever, to study, and still not be motivated because you need the E. P times E times S3 is the equation for limitless motivation. The E stands for what? If you listen to my podcast, we're approaching 100 million downloads. So I want to thank all of you for supporting that. No sponsors. We just put it out there to the world. The E stands for energy. When you're exhausted, you're not motivated, right? You're not gonna we have a 1 year old not sleeping incredibly well the past week because we went away and got out of his routine. And when you're exhausted, we're not getting, my wife and I are not getting great sleep. I don't know if anyone could relate. And it affects your motivation. If you eat a big processed meal and you want to read, but you're in a food coma, you're not going to be very motivated. So the E is energy. And remember this, our friend Brendan Burchard wrote Motivation Manifesto and other books with Hay House. He says you don't have energy, you generate energy. And that's a big part of our philosophy, is taking the nouns in your life and turning them into verbs. Taking the nouns and turning them into verbs. What does that mean? I feel like we hypnotize ourselves, self-hypnosis, when we say, I don't have creativity, I don't have motivation, I don't have focus, I don't have energy, I don't have a good memory. These are not things you have. These are things you do. They're not things you have, nouns. They're things you do. They're verbs. And by turning them into verbs, what does that give you? Power. It gives you your own agency back. So you don't wake up saying, I hope I have motivation to write my book today, or I hope I have focus so I could be here with my children or on this meeting. You don't have focus, you do it. There's a process for focusing. There's a process for generating energy. There's a process for motivating yourself. There's a process for being more creative, right? And so our goal with our company is taking these nouns and turning them into verbs that give you a recipe on how to be creative, how to solve problems, how to remember, how to read faster, right? And so the E is energy. And we could talk a little bit about that. What are the best brain foods? How do you optimize your sleep? And so much more. And then finally, you could have limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not be motivated because you need S3, small, simple steps. What often keeps somebody not motivated, procrastinating, is maybe you set a goal and it's just too abstract. It's too big. It's too intimidating. And a confused mind won't do anything. Confused mind won't do anything. So, how can you break it down into a small, simple step? So, going back to exercise, as your body moves, your brain grooves, right? But if you're not doing it consistently, maybe a small, simple step is put on your running shoes, right? If if we're connected on social media, and thank you if we are, and you see pictures of me with Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey or other individuals, people invariably ask, how did we meet? How did we connect? And I could tell you, we bonded over books. Leaders are readers, right? You read to succeed. If somebody has decades of experience on negotiation or marketing or health and wellness or feng shui or something, and you can sit down and read that book, they put that information into a book, and you can sit down and read that book in a few days, you could download decades in a days. That's the biggest advantage. And reading is, people ask all the time, like, what's the best brain training or app to train your brain? I'm telling you, it's reading. Reading is how you install new software, upgrade your operating system. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. All right. So, and I prefer reading. Audiobooks are wonderful, but when people are tested, as I saw this question in the chat, for audiobooks, when they're tested for comprehension and retention, which is better, reading a book or listening to a book? It's actually reading the book. Because, and I think one of the reasons why is when somebody is listening to an audiobook, and I encourage with our audiobook, at the end of every chapter, we have new content, we have a conversation about the the chapter. I mean, so it has hours of extra content. I love audiobooks, but usually when people are listening to audiobook, you're doing something else at the same time. You're multitasking. You're driving, or you're cleaning the home, or you're exercising. You're doing something. And so your focus, so the reason why you have a less comprehension retention is because you're distracted, right? But going back to the power of reading, if you're not reading, and by the way, to read a book a week, and I think this is the biggest, if you get nothing out of this other than reminding you to read more, the average person only reads 2 or 3 books a year. We get all our clients reading 50 books a year, at least one book a week. And even if you're not a, a quick reader, as we call them, where we triple your reading speed with better comprehension, better retention, there's a whole chapter on speed reading in this book, but it's not just skimming, scanning like traditional speed reading. We get a lot, most people, like, if you ever taken, have anyone ever taken a traditional speed reading program? It's usually skimming, scanning, skipping words, getting the gist of what you read, right? And we train a lot of financial advisors, a lot of attorneys, a lot of medical doctors to how to read properly. And you don't want your doctor just to get the gist of what she's reading, right? And so, and maybe because I started as a memory trainer, comprehension and retention is so important. So smart reading. But let's say we triple our reading speed, and what normally takes an hour, you do in like 20 minutes, right? You're saving all this time, and time is the most valuable asset. Even watching this right now, even if you don't have to pay for it, you still have to pay attention, right, with your time. And so going back to the power of reading, the average book has about 64,000 words. The average reader reads only 200 words a minute, and that's unfortunate. That's slow. But if you divide those two numbers, that means to get through one book, it's about 320 minutes. Now, 7 days in a week, that means about 45 minutes a day will get you through one book a week. 52 books a year. That's like a PhD, MBA in any category, right? And so think about how many books that you have that are unread. As I mentioned, become shelf help, not real self-help, and dedicating 45 minutes a day, right? And by the way, if you want to get through that in less than 45 minutes, one quick tip is use a visual pacer. When you underline the words, don't touch if you're reading on a tablet, don't touch the screen or don't touch the book, but just underline under the words. Don't skip anything. That visual pacer, could be a mouse on a computer, a highlighter, whatever, will help you to read about 25 to 50% faster. And don't believe everything I'm saying. Read a book for 60 seconds, put a mark in the margin where you start, a mark in the margin where you end, read how you normally read without your finger, count the number of lines in 60 seconds, and then pick up where you left off, just underlining the words to help you to focus better, and time yourself for 60 seconds. Put a mark in the margin when you're done, count the number of lines you just read the second time. That number for most everybody. And we have students in every country in the world. We have the largest online academy for accelerated learning and brain optimization, 195 nations. We get a lot of feedback. That second number would be about 25, 50% or more, which is incredible, right? Because reading takes time. The average person reads about 4 hours a day. That means, by the way, how many of you have a business and you have teammates, employees, staff? That means half of their day is spent reading. That means half of their salary is being paid just to read. So reading is something that we can make a lift in because reading is a skill. But when's the last time you upgraded that skill? How old were you? When's the last time you took a class called reading? 6, 7 years old? So the difficulty and demand has increased a lot, but how we read it, retain it is the same, how we study it. So that growing gap, which is just getting worse, creates stress. They call it information anxiety, higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness, right? So it's the idea is upgrading these skills to be able to meet with the demand. Like nowadays, it's like you're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose, trying to keep up with everything you need to research, all your emails, everything that's coming in the written form. So it really is, if knowledge is power, reading is your superpower. But let's say you're not motivated to read that 45 minutes. Small, simple step, S3, open the book, read one line. You say you get the idea. If your children, we just did on our podcast, we had one of the top biological dentists, and we're talking about oral health and brain health. And we're talking about things to do beyond brushing, like oil pulling, tongue scraping. We talk about flossing. And how do you get your kids to floss? Maybe that's too big of a step, right? Small, simple step, get them to floss one tooth because nobody's going to stop with one. Just like when you read one line in a page, you're not going to stop at one line, right? So little by little, a little becomes a lot, and that's S3. And finally, then you have the third M, which is methods. So you could have limitless motivation and limitless methods, upgraded methods to invest, to do real estate, to read faster, but you could still be stuck in that box because your mindset, you don't believe it's possible, right? You don't believe you deserve it. Or now here's some magic I want to share with you that I don't go through so much in the book. Where mindset and motivation cross over, there's this space, right? I'm going to give you 3 I's. That's inspiration. And you find like some speakers fall into different categories. I mentioned motivation manifesto, Brendan, right? Mindset. There's some people that talk about mindset. There's some people that purely give methods. But where mindset and motivation cross over, the first I is inspiration. And what does an inspiring speaker do, or inspiring book, or inspiring movie? They change your mindset of what's possible, and they give you a little drive and motivation, a little push. But you don't have the methods. You're inspired, but you don't have the instruction. Where mindset crosses over with methods, right? You have what? You have something called the second I, ideation. Your mindset, you believe it's possible, you believe you're capable of it. That's your mindset. And you have the methods. You know exactly what to do to reach this goal, that you can get out of this box. But it's just still an idea because it's ideation because you lack the motivation. And then finally, where motivation and methods cross over, motivation and methods, that shared space, the third I is implementation. You're motivated, you have purpose, you have energy, and you know the methods. So you're implementing, but you could still, again, be stuck in this box because you're lacking the mindset. But do you see how everything falls in these three categories? And I started this conversation by saying the power of choice. Life is the letters C between B and D. B is birth, D is death. Life C is choice. Three choices you could always make: your mindset, what you're saying to yourself, your motivation, purpose, energy, small, simple steps, and the overall strategy or methods. Does that make sense? So whenever I'm working on myself or working with others, this is the lens I use. By the way, where all three M's or all three I's intersect right in the middle, that's the fourth I, which is integration. Integration. It's your identity. It's just who you are because you're completely aligned and congruent. Your head, your heart, your hands are in alignment, so things become almost effortless. And that's the goal here. When you do this, then you create, if you have the expanded version, momentum, right? You're removing the friction and you're creating momentum, which helps a lot when you want to be able to reinvent yourself. That's why in the new book, Limitless, we talk about ways of enhancing that momentum. So in the time that we have, I want to share with you, I want to take an acronym. How many of you used acronyms back in school to help you to remember certain things like, I don't know, the Great Lakes, homes, right? HOMES, Lake Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior, right? So here's an acronym, reinvent. And these are just a handful of, what is it? 8 things that you could use to remind yourself to reinvent yourself. All right, I'm gonna go through it very rapidly. The R in reinvent is rest. You don't have to fix everything and make everybody happy. You need time for you, time to refuel. When you rest, especially sleep, for your brain, first of all, you consolidate short to long-term memory. If you have long-term memory issues, you might want to get a sleep study. Also, you clean out plaque. The sewage system in your brain kicks in when you sleep, and that's where you clean out the plaque that could, the beta amyloid plaque that could lead to brain aging challenges. And then it's also where you dream. If you listen to the podcast, if you want to search my name, How to Remember Your Dreams, uh, you realize like a lot of culture was invented in dreams. Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein in her dream. Paul McCartney came up with Yesterday in his dream. A chemist created the periodic table in his dream. But that requires rest. All right. So your brain is not meant to go full force all the time. You have to disconnect to reconnect. And we've done so many episodes on how to master your sleep if that's an issue for you. One of my favorites is, you remember, we would know it's time to sleep because the environment would tell us thousands of years ago. It would get cooler and it would get darker. So just use that as a clue. The E in reinvent is, we talked about it, exercise, right? Engaging in regular, not just 3 times a week at the gym, but moving throughout the day. You notice I'm standing and I do these exercises like super brain yoga. Some of you familiar with this. You massage your earlobes. You can do this with me. Massage your earlobes with the opposite hand. Inhale, go down. Exhale, come up. Inhale, go down. Exhale, come on up. As your body moves, your brain grooves. We could do educational kinesiology, right? Cross crawls, taking your hand, raising your opposite knee, going back and forth to facilitate left-right brain communication. I mean movement. You create brain-derived neurotropic factors. The blood flow gets more oxygen into your brain. The I is ingest. And what am I talking about? The fuel for your brain, right? Dr. Mindy mentioned some of my favorite brain foods. I put it on your body. I use an old 2,500-year-old memory technique from ancient Greece. Avocados, imagine using it as scalp conditioner. Blueberries coming out of your nose. Broccoli stuck in your teeth. Olive oil. Clean your ears with olive oil. Imagine turmeric all over your fingers, right? Eating walnuts out of your belly button. So these are some of my favorite brain foods. Also, there's something in the book called nootropics, which are the foods are good for cognitive health. For cognitive performance, there are some substances that have human testing and studies. I put that information from the book at brainnutrition.com. So you get that for free. Brainnutrition.com. I list 25 various supplements that could help boost your brain power, help your focus, your memory, and it's free. Brainnutrition.com. All right. N is novelty. I just want to remind you, novelty, seeking new experiences will help you actually keep your brain, stave off brain aging challenges, and could potentially help you live longer. There's a study done with nuns. They called it aging with grace. These nuns were living 80, 90 above. They found out half of their longevity was their faith, their gratitude. The other half, they were lifelong learners, studying every day, having deep conversations. Because of it, added years to life and life to their years. All right. Um, you could check it out, but just learning every day. You have a to-do list, have a to-learn list. The V, very quickly, as we wrap, visualize. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something you can vividly imagine and something that's real. If you've gone to our annual events, our Brain Power Conference, I do these exercises where I get you to visualize something and be able to do more, right? Because your mind is so powerful and it's a sign of things to come, and you can visualize your success to reinvent yourself. E is engage. What do I mean? Social interaction stimulates your brain. Who you spend time with is who you become. You have these mirror neurons, and we're constantly imitating the words, actions, thoughts, character, habits of the people we spend time with. But it also reduces stress. It also, loneliness is a challenge with mental health. So remember, we all need people to cheerlead for us, to have our backs, to be kind to us. And if you haven't found that person, be that person, especially be that person for yourself. All right. So E is engage. The end, there's lots of things I could put there. I would just remind you of the note-taking technique. I write down my thoughts, I'd write down my new learnings, and this helps to consolidate new information and clarifies your thoughts and can help you reinvent yourself, right? I think because if you want to manifest, you take the invisible, make it visible. And the first step is writing it down, because then there's something outside of yourself that's moving you on track to that goal. And then finally, the last thing is T, which is time. And this is time. I think it's very important to schedule white space. Nothing on your for an hour. Disconnect to reconnect for reflection. Spending time reflecting on your experiences and learnings to deepen your understanding. This reinvent framework is designed to help you to boost your brain performance and support you in your personal and professional reinvention. Um, the last thing, because I saw one of the comments about speed reading, everybody has a different brain type. And depending on your brain type, just like love language, has different love languages. Uh, Personal medicine is based on a test, personalized medicine, like a DNA test. Personalized nutrition is based on a microbiome test. We created a quick quiz in Limitless that just takes 4 minutes, multiple choice, that will show you your dominant brain type. And once you understand your brain type, we give you prescriptions on how to read faster, improve your memory, your focus, and it's free. All right. So you could be a dolphin, or you could be an owl, or cheetah, owl, dolphin, and an elephant. And you could see it for free at mybrainanimal.com. That's our gift to you, mybrainanimal.com. And all I ask is that you'll get some art and just post it, tag us, tag Hay House, so we get to see it. Because I'm curious, the community, what's your dominant brain animal? And once you know it, you know how to sell, you know how to parent, you know how to coach, you know how to teach, you know how to market, but you also know how to learn and reinvent yourself. Because I'll end with this. It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart. It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart. And we all have genius inside of us. I always say that life is like an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if an egg is broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things begin on the inside. And if you're watching this, you've self-selected. You have greatness inside of you. You have genius inside of you. And when is now the perfect time to let it out? Thank you very much, everybody.